Hello students, I am sure that you all are able to receive your homeworks and you are able to do all the assignments given. Now today I am going to just give you a gist of the first lesson, which is definition of economics. Now basically, before we get into the deep details of the lesson, I just want you to understand that economics is derived from two Greek words. Okay? The first Greek word is oikos, which means a household, that means one single household, and the second word is nomos, which means a manager. So this can tell us that economics means the efficient management of a household affair or about one person's household. Okay? Now see, there was a person, an economist, his name was Jacob Winner, and he described economics saying that economics is what economists do. Okay, so this definition actually tells us the scope of the subject. Okay, so what economists are doing, that is what is economics, he said. Now according to our syllabus, we are going to study about 4 different definitions. Let's get into them. The first definition is the wealth definition by Adam Smith. Now Adam Smith is also known as the father of economics. Okay, and Adam Smith always talked about wealth. Now he gave certain features of his definition also, which I will tell you in a bit. But first I want you to understand that wealth was something that he focused upon. Okay, and basically he said that this subject is related with producing wealth and using that wealth. Okay, so his only goal and focus was on earning money and accumulating the wealth. So we can say that his fundamental motive was accumulating wealth and earning money. Alright, and in your book, actually the PDF file that you have a little description about Adam Smith. You can go through about what he has written in his time, what kind of books he has written, and all of that talks about only wealth. Okay, now let's get into the features of his definition. Our first feature is, it is the study of wealth. Now actually, according to Adam Smith, economics deals with wealth like I told you, but it deals with the wealth of nations. Okay, he is talking about the wealth of different countries. Now he believes that every nation's prosperity or every nation's success, it completely depends upon the accumulation of wealth. So the more the wealth, the happier are the citizens of that country. That is what he believed. So basically his main focus was that nations should acquire wealth. Our second feature is causes of wealth. Now Smith's definition, like I explained to you about wealth, it shows that economics also deals with the causes behind the creation of wealth. He's not only focusing on wealth, but he's also trying to give the reasons behind creating wealth. See, his belief was that wages that human resources are earning is quite an important factor. Okay, so whatever wage a person is earning, a human is earning, is very important for the growth of the nation. That is what he believed. And he also believed that the source of nation's wealth is from the wages of the humans. Therefore, wealth of a nation could only be increased by raising the production of material goods. So more the production, the more money is going to be earned, and the more money is going to be earned, more wealthier the nation is going to be. Our next point is economic man. Now, in this definition, if you notice that he has quite focused upon that kind of a man who is very much aware of his self-interest. Now, such a man is known as economic man. What kind of a man is known as an economic man? A man who knows or who is quite aware about his self-interest. Okay, so he actually was claiming that economics studies the behavior of such human beings who have the only object of earning money. Okay, so if a human's objective is to earn money, that person becomes a very economic man. Okay, that is what the belief of Adam Smith was. Next, we are going to see the criticisms of this definition. Now, criticisms actually mean a critical analysis of the definition. Okay, so basically what I want you to understand is that whenever in a definition you come across the criticisms, it means that there are other economists who did not agree with that particular definition, and they had their own thinking of a particular definition. Okay, so this is the viewpoint you have to understand while we are doing the criticisms. Let's go through them. The first one is very materialistic. Now, what you have to understand is that Adam Smith was actually considering that economics is a science of wealth and material goods. Okay, he is only focusing upon material goods. Okay, and he did not consider the role of non-material goods and services. That means he is not considering the welfare of the society in terms of services or non-material goods, whereas he is considering more of materialistic goods. So therefore, people like teachers, people like doctors, lecturers, engineers, these are not in the category of Adam Smith's definition. Why? Because they are not materialistic. They are providing their services, right? So therefore, they don't come under the category of the definition of Adam Smith. Our next criticism is secondary place to man. Now, Adam Smith gave very less importance to man, and he gave more importance to wealth. That means primary position was given to wealth and the secondary position was given to man. Okay, so critical analysis have told that human life cannot be sacrificed for wealth. Like, you cannot be giving away your life for money, right? To earn money, you cannot be giving your life. Now, when you cannot be giving your life for wealth, then definitely that is the right thing. But Adam Smith's focus was only and only upon earning money and not concerned about the life of a human being. Okay. Our next criticism is it ignores the problem of scarcity. Now, Adam Smith has very clearly ignored the problem of scarcity. Now, what kind of scarcity are we talking about over here? We are talking about the scarcity of resources. Now, in an economy, you have to understand that resources are limited. Okay. Now, if let's take the example of COVID-19 days, that is these days that we're going through. Not everything is fully supplied into the market because things were locked down for such a long time. Therefore, it will take time to come into the market. Things will take time to get back in its normal position, right? So therefore, there is limitations to the resources. Okay. Therefore, Adam Smith is more concerned about earning money and wealth. He's more concerned about accumulating wealth, but did not consider the problem of scarcity. Scarcity means lack of something or less. Okay. Let's move on. Now, we are going to study about the second definition, that is the welfare definition by Alfred Marshall. Okay. Now, this definition, as you can see, is given by Alfred Marshall. We're going to study about this definition. Now, basically, if you see here on your screen is displayed the definition of Alfred Marshall. What does he say? Now, he is saying that economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. That means in our day-to-day life, it is the study of man, humans. Now, he's not talking about wealth, he's talking about mankind. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and the use of the material requisites of well-being, which means that he is talking about the parts of human beings which are connected with what? The well-being, which are connected with those materialistic goods which lead to the well-being. Well-being means to a good life. Okay, so he's talking about welfare, he's talking about well-being of the people with the help of material requisites. Okay, now according to him, actually, it is also basically, if you look into your PDF also, it talks about that it is a study of wealth maybe on one side, but actually what is more important is the study of man. The first line itself says it is a study of mankind. So here it's not being so partial, it's not giving secondary place to man, but it's giving a primary place to man. Okay, and second thing, the basic thing is to let the humans have well-being, or in other words, welfare. Let's move on into the details of this definition. Now we are going to study about the features of this definition. Okay. Now our first feature is it is a study of mankind. Now see, you have to understand that he means Marshall believed that wealth is not an end, okay, but only a means to human welfare. So therefore, according to Marshall, it is the study of man which occupies the central place in the economy or in the study of economics. Okay, so basically Marshall is trying to let us know that wealth is not the end of something, but what is more important is mankind, or it is the study of man which is the central part of the study of economics. Basically, we are to study the behavior of humans towards well-being and welfare. Therefore, it is a study of mankind. Second point is study of ordinary business of life. Now, economics, like it's saying that it's a study of ordinary business of life. Basically, an individual has different parts of life, right? Every individual has a different part of life. Some will have economic lives, and everyone has some social part of it. Some will have religious, some will have political. So we are in different areas of our life. Every human has all of these, right? So economics is concerned only with the economic aspect of human life. Here Marshall is not talking about the social life of a person. For example, if I am going to meet my friends, Marshall's definition is not going to consider me meeting my friends, okay, because that's my social life and that's pretty personal. But how I am spending my money, how I am saving my money, how economic I am, that is what is to be studied in economics according to Alfred Marshall. Basically, he is talking only about the economic business of a person's life. Our next point is study of material welfare. Now Marshall is quite emphasizing upon this word material welfare. If you remember, in the definition towards the end it was written material requisites for well-being. Okay. Now according to him, economics is not concerned with total human welfare, but it is concerned with material welfare only, which means that it is related to wealth. That means economics studies those activities which are most closely connected with the attainment of the use of the material requisites of well-being, which means that economics is connected not with the total welfare, not every aspect of welfare in a human being, but the economic, the materialistic part, the materialistic part is more important for Alfred Marshall. Okay, so he's talking about that welfare where a human can be in well-being through materialistic goods or through materialistic requisites. Our next feature is emphasis on requisites of well-being. Now obviously the material things like food and all, okay, they are important, quite important objects: food, shelter, clothing, all of these are the three primary things that a human needs. Now material needs are very basic needs which must be fulfilled before one can think of the other needs. So basically the emphasis is upon the materialistic requisites, but he's also saying that material needs are definitely basic, which are to be fulfilled before a new one comes up. Okay, before a new need, new materialistic need comes up, the previous materialistic needs have to be fulfilled. Next is exclusion of non-economic activities. Now what he is saying, he is not considering non-economic activities. Non-economic activities can be like the services of people, okay, for example religious life of people, or the social and cultural life of people. What is my tradition, what culture I follow, what cultural dress I am wearing, that doesn't matter. That is nothing to do with the Alfred Marshall's definition or economics at all. He is saying that non-economic activities are not to be included in economics. Okay, so he is only talking about that part of human which is economic part of the human business of life. Okay, now let's move on to the criticisms of this definition. Okay, and the first criticism over here is economics is regarded as social science only. Now what is Alfred Marshall saying? He is saying that economics is regarded as a social science only. He is saying that in other words, actually others are criticizing him for the fact that his definition is very much a social science only. Okay, so Marshall has been criticized for treating economics as a social science rather than a human science. A social science studies the actions of the individuals living in a society, how a person lives in the society. So this is something unacceptable. Actually, critics have said that he is not considering economics as a human science but is considering it as a social science. So social science is more about the society, and this is not acceptable because some of the important laws of economics are quite relevant to an individual. Okay, and they may not be relevant to a society or to a community. Therefore, this is a criticism of the definition of Alfred Marshall. Our next point is impractical classification of activities. Now, this is the second criticism that is actually pointed out by Robbins, Lionel Robbins. We are going to study about Lionel also further. So basically, he is saying, that means Lionel Robbins is saying that distinction between economic and non-economic activities is unscientific, illogical and illusory, since all human activities have an economic aspect. Moreover, welfare is composite and it is very difficult to separate material welfare from the total welfare. Now, Robbins is criticizing by saying that it is not possible to bring about a difference between the economic and non-economic activities because they are together economic in nature. They are together an economic part of a human being. Therefore, he is saying that this classification of activities that Marshall has given is not correct. This is not practically right, or this is not logical. Our next criticism is materialistic aspect. Now, this definition has been criticized on the grounds of materialistic aspect. That means only material things are included here. They have excluded the services that a human gives, like doctors and lawyers, teachers, engineers. They are providing their services which are not included here. So again, in this definition is very materialistic. Okay. Next point is restricted scope of economics. Now, Lionel Robbins is an economist who has also criticized welfare definition as they restrict the scope of study of economics. So he is actually saying that Marshall has restricted the scope of economics in his definition. Basically, economics studies several activities which hardly promote economic welfare. And what kind of activities can they be which are not promoting economic welfare? like cigarettes, okay, guns, liquor, alcohol. These are all such activities which are not promoting economic welfare in the society or to an individual, right? Yet production of these goods are still taking place. Even after these things being harmful, still the production of such goods are taking place. Therefore, Robbins is saying that the scope of economics is not very clear over here. It's not broad enough. It's very, very restricted. The next point is vague concept of material welfare. Now, the welfare definitions are also subject to criticism on the ground that material welfare cannot be quantitatively measured. Welfare is a subjective thing. I'm sure you agree with this, that welfare is not something that you can count. Okay, welfare is not something we can measure or count. We cannot say, oh, 1 kg of welfare, we've received 20 quintals of welfare. No, it is something that cannot be measured. Therefore, this material welfare concept altogether is very vague. It is not very specific at all. Okay, so it is a very, very vague concept. Let us move on. Our next heading or our next definition that we're going to talk about is the scarcity definition. Okay, and this definition is given by Lionel Robbins. Now, according to Lionel Robbins, economics is a science that studies human behavior as a relationship between limited resources and unlimited wants which have alternative uses. Okay, so basically this is a study, economics, he's saying that economics is a study where they are studying about human behavior, about the behavior of a person towards what? Towards the relationship or as a relationship between the limited resources and the unlimited wants which have their own alternative uses. Okay, let's get deeper into the definition and you will understand better. For that, we are going to understand this. Now, what he's saying is that instead of discussing a certain type of human behavior, it focused its attention on a particular aspect of human behavior. And that behavior is concerned with the scarcity of resources and unlimited wants. Now, what Lionel Robbins is doing over here is that he's not talking about all kinds of aspects of human behavior, but he's focusing upon one kind of human behavior, and which is concerned with the scarcity or the lack of resources and the unlimited wants of the humans. Okay, now let's move further. Now, there are some features of this definition, or we can say some major points. So the first point is ends. Okay, we are going to first talk about ends. Now, ends means unlimited wants. Okay, every person has unlimited wants. If today you get a bicycle, tomorrow you would want something else, then after 2-3 days you would have another want creeping up. So every time we have a new want creeping up, right? Therefore our wants are very unlimited. Okay, there is no end to our wants. So these human wants are unlimited. When one is satisfied, like I said, another want arises, and when that is also satisfied, another one arises. So this chain keeps taking place. One want is satisfied, the other arises. Another want, that second want is satisfied, a third one creeps up. So every time there is a new chain developing because of the unlimited wants. The next thing is means, which means scarcity of resources or the lack of resources. Now, it means that goods and services which are used to satisfy the wants are actually scarce. Okay, so that means those things through which human wants are satisfied are very limited, or in other words we will say they are very scarce. Okay, so you have to understand that if these means are abundant in nature, then there would have been no economic problem, right? But because there is scarcity, one is forced to postpone some of his wants. So, for example, if today I need, let's say, a car, but my money is limited, that's my limited or scarce resource, then I might have to postpone my want, right? I might have to think of not buying a car for now, and I might think about buying a car when I will have enough money, right? So this is scarcity of resources. The next major point is alternative uses. Now that means the resources have their alternative uses. Actually, means are limited, but their uses are multiple. They can be used for many purposes. For example, let's take the example of land. Now, land can not only be used for agricultural purpose, it can be used for construction of a house, construction of a factory, for the purpose of poultry farm, for the purpose of developing a swimming pool on it. There can be many uses of land, right? Therefore, every resource has its alternative use. Now, let's move. Now, we are going to look into the criticisms, and our first criticism is narrow view of economics. Basically, if you look into the definition, you will find that Robbins has only and only focused upon just the human behavior towards scarce resources and unlimited wants. But he has ignored aspects like maybe national income, employment, or taxation system, or we can also say banking system. These are some economic aspects that he has ignored, and there can be many more aspects towards there can be many more aspects which can be more important than this, but he has not focused upon them but clearly ignored those aspects. Our next point is static definition. You know why his definition is considered to be very static? Because he is not saying anything about the growth in resources. All he is talking about is only and only scarcity of resources. Okay? Therefore, his definition is considered to be static. Our next point is that economic problem may not always arise from scarcity. That means, see, Robbins has clearly described that the problem is only and only scarcity of resources. But this may not be true. There can be occasions when this cannot be the only reason. Now, there can be a reason that due to the abundance of resources, there can be economic problems, right? Now, a good example is Great Depression in the year 1930, because then also what happened, it was not because of the scarcity, but it was because of the surplus or excess of goods. And what happened during the Great Depression? It was actually a bank failure that took place, and it was a great panic to the investors. It was actually a big stock market crash. Okay, so in such a situation, it did not arise because of limited resources or scarce resources. It took place because of the excess of goods. Okay, so economics cannot always be because of the scarcity of resources. There can be economic problems arising because of the excess or surplus of goods. Okay, now next let's move on into the next definition, which is the growth oriented definition given by Paul A. Samuelson. Okay, now basically Paul Samuelson was a neo-Keynesian American economist, and his definition says that economics is the study of how people and society choose. So first thing, how people and society are choosing. Second thing, are they choosing with the use of money or are they choosing without the use of money? Number 3, what are they doing with that? Are they employing the scarce productive resources? And those scarce productive resources which have their alternative uses? Or are they producing various commodities over time and distributing them for the purpose of consumption, either now or in the future? So are they providing it to various groups of people in the society or to individuals? This is all about the definition of growth. So there are the definition, if you see, there are certain commas in between which quite clearly describes the different points of this definition. Okay, so when we do the features of this definition, you will yourself understand what it all means about. So our first feature is emphasis on economic problems. Okay, basically what has happened over here is that Paul Samuelson has clearly focused upon or emphasized upon economic problems. Now he is more talking about scarce resources and unlimited ones, and therefore the definition is giving a realistic explanation of economic problems. Similarly, Robbins did the same. He also gave emphasis on economic problems in the form of scarcity of resources and unlimited wants. And this is exactly what the growth definition, that is Samuelson who has given this definition, is emphasizing upon. Our next feature is dynamism. Okay, so basically Samuelson has given a very dynamic flavor to this definition, because he is talking about production, distribution and consumption. So basically the problem of growth has been included in the purview of the definition by building up a new aspect on the foundation that Robbins had provided. So basically he is giving a lot of flavor in his definition by doing what? By adding production as the first step, distribution as the second step, and consumption as the third step. Okay, so the first thing that is going to take place is the production, second is going to be the distribution of those goods, and then lastly the consumer is going to consume those commodities. Okay, so that is dynamism. Next, universal problem. Next is that it is considered to be a universal problem. Now Samuelson's definition is not only dynamic, but it is also quite wide. Robbins' definition was very narrow, right? But this definition is quite broad. It has wider scope. Okay, so basically he is quite rightly emphasized upon resources and its problems, and he is not only talking about scarcity of resources, but he is also talking about things related to money, or it can be without money. So without money would mean barter system, with money would mean monetary. So he's considering all those aspects together. So he is not very narrow in his definition, but he is quite wide in his definition. Okay, so his definition is giving out universal problem, that the scarcity of resources is not limited, but it is quite a universal problem. The next point is, it is comprehensive. Okay, so his definition is quite comprehensive, which means that it is not only growth oriented, it's not only about the growth, but it's also about future. If you remember, in the last line of his definition, it clearly says to produce various commodities over time and distribute them for consumption now and in the future. So therefore he's not only talking about the growth aspect, but he's also considering future. Okay, he's taking future into consideration. So that's very comprehensive, and it has also incorporated Marshall's welfare aspect. Okay, so he is not only thinking his own point of view, but he is considering Marshall's part also, that welfare. Okay, he is considering Robbins' part also, that yes, scarcity and all are universal problems. Then he is also considering his own point of view, saying that it is future oriented along with being growth oriented. The next thing is criticisms of the growth definition. Now, like every other definition, this definition also had few drawbacks, and let's see those few drawbacks. The first drawback is that he has underplayed the importance of development in the welfare of the society, which means that he has ignored the development indicators. Okay, what can be the development indicators? For example, Human Development Index, or it can also be the Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index, Gender Development, it can be Gender Inequality Index, it can be the Living Index, or we can say physical quality actually of the living index. So these are certain development aspects that he is missing upon. He is definitely talking about welfare, but he's in that welfare not talking about development. Okay, so that is the first thing that he's missing upon. Next aspect is, or the next, criticism is, he has neglected the role of service sector in the growth of a nation. Now, first thing, he in welfare, he's excluding or ignoring development, and he's also neglecting the role of service. Service sector is also equally important for the growth of a nation, but he's not considering that. Okay, service sector would include people who, who play different roles in the society. For example, teachers, doctors, lawyers, and professors, lecturers, and there can be other kinds of people who give their services. So he's not considering all of this, he's neglecting that. Whereas if you actually look into the service sector, it really helps boost the economy. Okay, so these are the two criticisms of the growth definition. Next is micro and macroeconomics. Okay, so basically micro and macroeconomics are two different terms that we're going to study about over here. Alright, so let's first look into microeconomics. Now, micro, the word itself says small. Okay, so micro in itself is a word which means small. So basically microeconomics is the study of economic decisions and behavior of individual units. So what is actually microeconomics? Microeconomics is a study where we are studying about individuals. Okay, we are talking about single or individual. Alright, so it can be an individual consumer, it can be an individual producer, an individual seller in the market. So for a particular commodity, all individuals attached to it is microeconomics. Okay, the next is macroeconomics. Macro means big, large. Okay, so macroeconomics studies the economy as a whole. Okay, they study the total thing of the economy. Basically, it studies aggregate national income, the aggregate consumption, aggregate savings. So everything, total of everything of the whole country. Basically, it's talking about, macro means it's talking about economy as a whole. So economy as a whole means for the entire country or the entire state. It's not talking about one single individual living in Dehradun. Or it's not, macroeconomics would not mean my personal system of handling my money and everything. It's going to talk about economy as a whole. Okay, so this is micro and macroeconomics. In your PDF file, you can go through micro and macroeconomics a little bit in detail. It is on page number 11 and page number 12. Okay, and also some part of it is on page number 13, and a little very small tiny part is also on page number 14. So you can just go through it. I've given you a brief idea what micro and macro is all about. Okay, now next we move on to the uses of microeconomics. Okay, so what are the uses of microeconomics? Where can we, what parts can be called microeconomics? So let's see the first thing, that is price determination and allocation of resources. So when we are talking about allocation of resources, or when we are talking about determining the price of something, that is microeconomics. Okay, next is determination of economic policies. When we are talking about policies taking place, any kind of economic policy, that will be considered to be microeconomics. Next, optimum utilization of factors of production. When the best utilization is taking place of the factors of production, and what are the factors of production? Land, labor, capital. Okay, these are all factors of production, even entrepreneur. So how they are being utilized, what are the best utilization methods being used for the utilization of factors of production, that will be considered in microeconomics. And next is linear programming. Okay, now let's move on to the uses of macroeconomics. The first one is determining the economic policies of the government. Okay, so basically previously in microeconomics, when we were determining the economic policies, that was not of the government, that was of an individual level. Okay, but macroeconomics means we are studying the economy as a whole. So when we're studying the economy as a whole, that means we are determining the economic policies of the government. Okay, next is economic planning. Now to plan for the whole country is economic planning. Planning regarding the economic aspects of a country is economic planning. Okay, so macroeconomics takes it under it. Okay, so macroeconomics also studies about economic planning. Next is international comparison. So international comparison also means what? Now I as an individual, I can't be comparing my own economic aspects with the other countries, right? But as a country, India can compare its economic level with other countries. So that will be considered to be macroeconomics. Next, development of microeconomic theories. So all the theories that lie under microeconomics are to be developed, and when they are developed as a whole, then they come under the category of macroeconomics. Now